Hey everybody, good evening. It's Dr. Nicole here. Do you notice something different? Just a little bit different? All right, I'm going to see if you'll guess. But I want us to talk about 3 ways that you can start getting more balance in your life. So, so many women, we struggle in this area. We struggle with burnout. We struggle with feeling like we're off kilter and we just can't get that feeling like things are running smoothly, right? So I want to give you 3 tips that you can actually start to implement to start to have more balance in your life, okay? So, hey there, did anybody notice that one thing that's different? All right, I'll give it up. I changed my hair color, right? All right, so if you kind of are new to me, you probably don't know that I used to wear my hair light like this for a while. Then I kind of went dark and I decided, you know what? COVID, like I'm trying to get out the house. I just want to do something a little bit different. So I did change my hair color. So the 3 things we can do to, as women, start to get more balance in our lives, all right? So if you need a pen or paper, yes, you get burnout sometime. Okay, yes. So you'll want to listen to this. And anybody who's just coming in, make sure you go to the link in my bio and sign up for my masterclass, or you can go to theblissworkshop.com, and I'm going to be going into more detail with this. So the one way, well, first of all, it's good that you recognize that you even experience burnout, because some people have it for so long and it becomes the norm for them that they never even recognize, right? So the one thing that you need to do to have more balance for yourself is to practice self-care regularly. Okay? Practice self-care regularly. So what is self-care? Because I heard someone tell me, oh, well, self-care is just a trend. And if that's how you're thinking about self-care, then you got to shift that mindset, because self-care is not a trend. It's not a luxury. It's actually a necessity. Self-care is literally where you pour back into yourself. And people think it has to be something that costs money, and it really doesn't. It could be a whole range of things. Like for me today, you know what I did? I hung out. My kids were home with their dad. They all hung out. And I went to relax at the salon, read my books, listen to my lectures, talk to the salon person, and get my hair colored. But other times my self-care is actually taking a long walk. Or my self-care could be doing some mindfulness or some deep breathing or exercising or journaling. You get my drift, right? Or it could be a massage, because earlier this week, I had a really bad back issue because of how I was sleeping. And then it got irritated when I went to the gym. I literally went, and I made a reel about it. I went to a Korean spa and I had a therapeutic massage and sat in the sauna. And I was there for a half a day. Those are all examples of self-care. But also, like I said earlier, making sure you sit down and take time to read and drink a nice cup of coffee or tea or whatever. Doing some quiet time and deep breathing. Doing some things where you literally just find some time to carve out like a boundary around yourself to say, this is me time. Okay, so I want us to get out of this idea that self-care is something that costs money, or that it's trendy, or that it's something that you have to make all of these plans to do. There's different kinds of self-care. All right, and I'm going to be talking about the different kinds in my workshop. But just know that self-care, that's the number one way, right? That's number one. The second thing that we have to do as women to be able to have more balance in our lives. And, I heard somebody say, oh, there's no such thing as work-life balance, right? They're calling it something else, integration. My thing is, I love the word balance, whether you call it work-life balance. I think about balance meaning things are steady and stable. There's no extremes, and I don't believe in extremes. So I love the fact that when I talk about balance, or when I think about experiencing balance, it's this sense that like I feel steady, I feel grounded, I don't feel pulled all over the place, right? So the second thing you need to do to be able to have more balance in your life is to learn to control your emotions. Let me say that again. Or it's to deal with your emotions, right? So many of us, emotions, the way we grew up, that it seems scary, right? Especially strong emotions like anger or sadness or frustration, where we feel like we can't control it. So we learn to push it down, suppress it, put it over there, not deal with it until one day it comes and it does explode and sort of like take us off balance, right? So one way to help yourself have more balance is to start to feel more comfortable dealing with your emotions, right? And I have a trick that I want to show you that will help you to be aware and get more in touch with your emotions. Yes. I want to look at the comments. So somebody says sometimes even just sitting and thinking, reflecting and being present is self-care. Yes. Thank you. And how much does that cost you, right? 0.00, right? It's absolutely free. And that it's not a trend. It doesn't cost anything, but it really helps you to pour back into yourself, right? And Amanda said, or let it loose. Yes, sometimes with emotions and your feelings, you got to just let them out. But I want to show you this trick. I actually teach this to children, including my children, which is called the brain in the palm of your hand. And it's a way to know, like we hear this term that we're getting triggered. You hear that term a lot, right? Like, oh, you're triggered. Because sometimes for us people, when you don't know how you're going to react to something or an emotion just comes up quickly or you don't know how to deal with it, it feels like you go from 0 to 100 like this, right? And so there's this thing called your brain in the palm of your hand. And you could think about your brain as like there's this inner part that is like all of the oldest part of the brain, like we call the primitive part, where all of our emotions like fear, anger, even anxiety can be triggered there. And it's important, right? Because it tells us when we need to be aware of things and, to protect ourselves. But we don't always want to be controlled by that part of the brain, right? And there's this outer part of the brain, which is like the thinking part. We call it the cortex. I'm not trying to get too technical, but it's that thinking part of the brain where we can plan and we can be rational and logical, right? And then there's another part that also connects the emotions to the logical thinking, right? And we need all of them. But what happens is sometimes when we get triggered, we're controlled. It's like this outer part. This is normal brain, like me talking right now, right? Aware, self-aware. But then when strong emotions come, it's like this, we flip our lid, we call it. That's what I tell my kids. When they get angry, I'm like, are you flipping your lid? It's like the thinking part of the brain is no longer in control and it's those emotions, right? So when you feel yourself, a lot of times you'll feel it in your body, or you'll just start to recognize that you're feeling something that maybe makes you feel out of control or want to do something or say something that you know is not going to have a good outcome, right? Just imagine yourself like knowing that you are flipping your lid. It's okay. Take a deep breath and try to be aware to bring your lid back down, right? Self-awareness is so important, especially when it comes to our emotions, because a lot of us, just as somebody said, you're trying to learn to control your emotions. And the first step is to just be aware and not always look at trying to suppress them, right? So if you think about like flipping your lid, right? When you feel you're getting triggered or having these emotions, or sometimes even when you're numb and you feel like something big has happened, but you don't have any feeling, it's almost like your brain is offline too, because you're more in a freeze response. It's almost like a trauma response, right? So think about ways in your life that you can start to be more in touch with your feelings, either by writing them down, by taking a deep breath, by just noticing what you feel. And if you ever feel like you're like out of control, your emotions just get so strong, just imagine like, okay, this is what's happening. I'm flipping my lid. My lid can come back down. I can breathe. I can get that thinking part of my brain to kind of get me back into balance. Okay. So, again, I'm going to be talking about this more in more detail in my workshop. So first I said self-care, the first tip. The second one is being more in control and aware of your emotions. And the third one, guess what? Guess what the third one is? Yes, I agree. It gets easier to handle when we start to pay attention. Awareness and paying attention is so much of the battle right there. I agree with that. So the third one is learning to say no. Surprise, surprise, coming from the boundaries coach here, right? So it's really about learning boundaries, but a first step is learning to say no. And who do you have to say no to? You'll be surprised that sometimes you are the one that you have to say no to, right? Of course, sometimes it's other people. It's people who may be not respecting our boundaries, or people who don't mean any harm, but it's just that what they are asking or needing of us is not something we have the ability or the capacity to give, right? So we have to be able to say no. And when I say we have to also be able to say no to ourselves, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that sometimes the things that we need to be able to progress in life and to feel good about ourselves and to feel like, we're making an impact on ourselves and what's important to us is to have discipline and to be able to say no to things that aren't going to get us where we want to go, right? So I know that, boundaries is like a whole 360 thing because you need boundaries with other people. You need to be able to tell people no, whether or not that disappoints them or makes you feel guilty or any of that. It's an important skill that you have to learn and be able to practice. But you also have to be able to say no to yourself when something is not good for you. Go back a few days when I made a post that said, stop twerking for likes, right? And what did I mean by that? A lot of times we're seeking a quick fix of attention to fill a void that we have. And we really need to stop. We need to learn to say no to doing that because we're looking for validation that's not really going to fulfill us. It's like cheap attention is not fulfilling validation. And learning to have a boundary with ourselves where we get in touch with what we're feeling. We learn to be more aware and connected and find healthier ways rather than things that are going to bring us sort of like a quick fix, but in the long run aren't really going to bring us the balance and fulfillment we want, right? So that, boundaries, I love talking about boundaries from so many different perspectives because they fit into every area of our life, from our relationships to how we treat ourselves and our bodies, to our workplace, to even like how we parent and how we are in our intimate romantic relationships. Okay. So it's a really rich topic, but it's one that fits in really, really, importantly with balance, having balance in our lives. Right. So the 3 tips, just to reiterate, and you know what, while I am here, I'm going to put the link. You can find the link in my bio, but you can also get it here. You can sign up here, the Bliss Workshop. I should have put this earlier. Okay. theblissworkshop.com. You can sign up for my free masterclass, and it is Banish Burnout and Build Bliss. And we are going to talk all about all of these things that we need to do as women to be able to experience more balance and bliss in our lives. Okay. So the 3 tips to reiterate: practice self-care regularly, and self-care is not a trend. Be more in touch with, aware of, in control of your emotions, and practice saying no, including saying no to yourself when you need to. Okay, so let me know what you think. Any other questions in the comments? Someone said it gets easier to handle it when we start to pay attention. Yes. Learning how to control my emotions. Yes. Let it loose sometimes. Very, very, very important. So I hope to see you all. The workshop is on March the 21st. That's a Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to dig in. This is almost like, I call it a masterclass, but it's really an It's a gathering where we really can dig into getting that balance and experiencing that inner freedom, that inner peace that we all want, right? To me, it's worth more than money. It's worth more than gold. Just knowing that I feel centered and grounded and free and peaceful inside. Okay? So, any other questions? All right. So thank you all for joining. I hope I'm going to see you. I know I'm going to see you on March 21st at the workshop. And tell me, come in my DMs, right? I'm going to put a post up in my stories tomorrow to ask which of these 3 things you connected with or you started to practice. Did you practice self-care? Did you start to be aware of or control your emotions? Or did you somehow practice saying no in a way that you needed to? Okay? So let me know also, you like my new hair color? All right. This is Dr. Nicole, your favorite psychologist and boundaries coach, and I will see you next time.